Hi guys, my name's Emma and I'm putting my life online, and this video is going to be the beginning of a series of what it's like and information I have gained offshore applying to Australian medical schools. Now, I found in this process there's not a lot of information available online. Of course, there's the information available through the schools, on the school websites and things like that, but there isn't a lot of personal opinion, personal experience, so I thought I could kind of fill that gap and provide some of my own. I'll be applying to the Australian medical schools through a service called AUSTRAC, which I will link below, and they work together with the Australian medical schools to sort of collect one application for you, and they sort of do all of the nitty-gritty filing and applying for you. So it seems pretty great, and I can talk about them in later videos. Now, AUSTRAC hosts these different fairs throughout the year and different events that bring representatives from the university to Canada, specifically to Ontario where I am, which has been invaluable in my sort of understanding the system, getting more information about the schools, etc., etc. So this video, I thought I would sort of talk about things I learned from some of these representatives at a recent sort of school fair that was hosted in Toronto. So if you'd like to hear more about that, then keep watching. The schools that were there were University of Queensland, University of Sydney, University of Melbourne, University of Western Australia, Griffith University, and Macquarie University. Probably saying that one wrong. Monash University does also accept international applicants, but they weren't at the fair, and I didn't really get to ask anybody why. I'm assuming they just couldn't send someone all the way to Canada. I'm just going to talk about in this video information I learned from these representatives. There's more information available online in their view books and stuff like that, but I personally haven't sort of compiled all that research yet. If you'd like to see me do a video really comprehensively comparing all the schools, then comment down below because I will so do that. But for now, let's get to it. So I'm sitting with my laptop in my lap, so if you see me looking down, that would be why. I'm going to try not to, but you know, I've taken notes for a reason, so let's make sure that all the information is correct. When I went there, I sort of on the train to the school where the event was happening, I wrote out some list of questions because I wanted to make sure that I asked every single school the same questions and make sure that if there were any specific questions I had regarding a school, I remembered to ask that as well. So the questions I asked were, are there any special requirements for the application? Does your school apply the fee waiver program for students applying through AUSTRAC? Because that used to be universal, but it isn't anymore. What's the class size? And of that, how many are international students? I did want to know a little bit about sort of what campus is like from someone who's actually been on campus and how the students find it. So I asked what the campus is like, what sort of support programs are available for international students or just students in general, what the student-to-student community is like. So is there involvement? Are students sort of close-knit? Are they just sort of attending class and not really talking? That sort of thing. Sort of what options of extracurriculars there are. I know med students don't have a lot of time, but I think it demonstrates a certain investment in building a community that I would want my university to have, even if I can't necessarily participate full force. I also asked if there's any sort of unique internship programs that are offered and what sort of that process is like. I wanted to know more about the city because obviously as an international student you can't really know because you haven't lived there. So I asked, what's the campus like in relation to the city, and what's sort of the cost of living of the city? So let's get started. So let's start with the university that didn't actually give me the best impression. And this is, again, solely my opinion, my experience with the individual that was representing the university, and has no reflection on the university itself. But the University of Sydney table didn't interact with me at all. When I approached the table, there was a guy sitting there, he was on an iPad, there were some books, and another iPad with a form that you could fill out. So I approached and I just said like, hi, I'm interested in attending for medicine, sort of giving him the opening to sort of give a spiel, and he just said, oh, okay, great, so this is the book that you would need to read. If you have other questions, you can fill them out on the form here. And that was it. And I was like, okay. So I did do that, filled out the form. I actually haven't received communication back either. I'm not sure if my questions were specific enough to warrant an email back, so maybe they just decided that they don't need to email me. I don't remember what I typed into the box on the iPad, but it just seems strange that no follow-up, not even like a thanks for attending our booth, was sent. And all I got from the dude was I asked the question, I was like, is it true that the fee waiver has been cancelled for Sydney? He said, yes, the application fee is $100 no matter where you're from or who you're applying through. So that means even though I'm applying through Austrec, I would have to pay $100 to apply to USyd, which is fine. I mean, that's less than applying to Ontario med schools, so whatever, but that's all the information I got. So I don't have much to say about USydney. I can do another video later once I've done my own research and gotten that information, but from this fair, I got nada. Sorry if there's a continuity change or error here. My cat started meowing and begging for attention. What can you do? So another university that I didn't get a lot of information from their representative was the University of Queensland. I've since attended an event that was University of Queensland specific, and it really changed my opinion, but from this fair, I really didn't get a lot. She kind of gave me a book, walked me through things. When I asked questions, she kind of just referred to the information in the book, which that might just mean that she didn't have a lot to add to my questions, which is fine, but it just didn't feel like a very personable interaction. The one thing she did help me figure out, because I did ask, I'm in an online graduate program, and Queensland does look at graduate degrees and your most recent completed GPA, so I was wondering what that would mean if I graduated, when they would look at that. Are they going to look at my undergrad or not? So she was able to answer that sort of question, but that was about it. She told me it was in Brisbane, which, I mean, I already knew, and yeah, she kind of sent me on my way. I got a better vibe from the University of Queensland than I did USydney, but neither of them left me feeling like, oh wow, they really want me to attend, which I know they see hundreds of students probably through all these fairs, and they did a little tour of Ontario and other Canadian universities, so I don't expect them to really be able to build a personal connection with everybody, but at least kind of fake it, I guess. They just didn't leave me with much to be desired. What can you do? I'm still going to do a bunch of research and see what those schools have to offer, but it just kind of sucks that I couldn't hear that from a person. So now the rest that I'm about to get into have a lot more detail because these people were, in general, pretty great and gave me a lot of information. So I'm going to start with Macquarie, I hope I'm saying that right, University, and we'll just go through the questions. So regarding the application process, they do require a personal statement, which I don't disagree with. Macquarie has a very specific focus on global health, and they want to make sure that the students also have that, which doesn't really showcase in a GPA or an MCAT score. There's no fee, or at least they participate in the fee waiver program. There are 60 students in each year of their medical class, and 20 of those are international. So that's a pretty cool percentage. About a third of their students are international. I think that might have to do with their global health perspective, or that they are a younger university, so, or at least the med school is. I asked her about campus life. She said there's about 40,000 students, about 12,000 of those are international in various programs, and she said there's a good vibe. I didn't really ask her to elaborate, but she seemed to enjoy it. I asked her about supports programs. She said that there's a lot available since it is a new med program. There's a lot of support for the students from the staff, and there's a lot of feedback between students and staff because they want to grow the program and make sure the program is doing the best it can. So I really admire that she was open and honest about that, and I really admire that the school has that sort of feedback processes. Student-to-student community, she said that they do try to make a community on campus, but it's just kind of depends on each student to find that. There are 140 clubs and associations on campus, which seems like a large amount. She said pretty much if you have an interest, you'll be able to find a club about it. There is a very unique internship at Macquarie Med School. There is one semester in India, and she said some of the students that go, well, you have to go, but some of the students when they come back are saying how they were spoiled in India. It's all expenses paid through your tuition. Your tuition doesn't increase, and it's really focusing on that world health and that global health perspective because the doctors are getting experience that they wouldn't otherwise in sort of a Western nation, and you are shuttled to and from your stay and the hospital and that kind of thing. It's really cozy, she kind of described it as, and a lot of the students come back and they feel like more coming back to real life when they come back to Australia. I asked what the city is like in relation. So Macquarie is near Sydney, but it's about 30 minutes away from Sydney. So you're not going to be in a big city if that's something that matters to you. I'm not sure that it does. We'd have to see. The cost of living is about $18,000 per year. And of course that's depending on your living expenses and things like that, but she said that's sort of the rough number that they tell international students. And just in general, my responses to her, she was kind of formal, but she was really nice, and you could tell that she did have personal experience on campus and wanted to market the school in more of a personable way. So I left with an overall good impression, and that international aspect of Macquarie really intrigues me. I'm not sure if it interests me, but there's definitely intrigue, and I definitely want to learn more. So that's Macquarie. One of the other universities that was there is Griffith University, and there were 2 women at that booth, and they had a lot of fun. They didn't take themselves too seriously, so that was nice. Getting down to the details, I asked them what the application is like, and they said current students studies GPA in combo with your previous years. So me being a master's student that's currently doing my master's, they would look at sort of my first semester grades as well as my undergraduate, which is kind of nice. They would need to have all of the grades by September. That's fine for me, but that might be information you need to know. And last year it was a semi-rolling interview schedule, so as applications came in, they did sort of assess them and would release interview invitations, which she seemed a little frustrated by. She said the institution never really lets them know, so they can never really translate that to students. So she felt sort of apologetic that she didn't have a definitive answer for me. I asked about the fee waiver. She said it's usually applied and that I could follow up with her to double check, but she said she's pretty confident that it would be applied again. Looking at class sizes, they have 200 students in the first year of medicine, and about 25 to 30 of those are international. So there isn't like a set, we only have this many seats, maybe 25 is or 30 is the maximum, but she didn't say, she just said in general, about 25 to 30. So you're just over like a tenth of the class here, which, depending on whether you'd want a more international focus or international friends or not, that kind of changes your opinion. I asked her what campus was like. She specifically said she wouldn't recommend living on campus. Not a lot of people spend all day there. They sort of come for class and leave, but the campus is tight-knit. So you can tell that there's a community there. It's just not the norm to sort of hang out on campus all day, and those that do live on campus are often in their first or second year of undergrad, so as a graduate student you're not necessarily going to enjoy that environment. I asked her about support for international students and med students. She said there is specific support just for international medicine students, and you're matched with a mentor. So that seems pretty cool to me, that it's not even voluntary, it's like you are matched no matter what with this mentor, so that they are focused on not just international students, but international medical students. So there is an importance there, and I appreciate that as a potential international medical student. The student-to-student community, she says, the school actively tries to foster a student-to-student community. They have like a Griffith Mates mentoring program, which can also sort of move into a paid position that a lot of the international medical students like, because it's not like a full part-time job, but it's a little bit extra cash. I asked her about unique internships, and she said that there is a collaboration with Gold Coast Hospitals. The head of medicine at Griffith is an OBGYN at Gold Coast Hospital, so there's a really good relationship there. There's a really high focus on problem-based learning, roundtable, interdisciplinary sort of discussion and things like that. They participate in the Queensland Rural Medicine Experience. There's an E there. I'm not sure what it means. I will add it in here. There's also a broad opportunities for Canadian students. It is the job of the students to find that, but the faculty will support them in searching for and going to an international. So meaning if you wanted to do an internship or a shadowing experience back in Canada, they would support you to do that. And they have the Griffith PNG program, which is focused on building relationships with the Indigenous population and Indigenous health. So it's pretty broad. I do admit I talked to her longer than I talked to some of the other schools, so she may have been able to translate more information, but I think that she did a really good job of sort of selling all the unique nuances of the Griffith program. So probably the second best conversation I had at the fair was with the University of Melbourne. The lady was really personable. She told us a lot of stories about her experience with international students, why she likes the campus, why she thinks the med program is great. And she was really knowledgeable, so I really had an enjoyable conversation with her. In terms of their applications, they do have a weighted GPA, so the final years of your undergrad are weighted higher than your first years, which is usually pretty nice. They do require specific anatomy credit, which means that if your undergrad education did not have a cadaver anatomy section, it would not count, so they need an extra prerequisite, basically. And they are the only that I'm aware of medical school in Australia that requires this. I did ask because I looked on their prerequisite list. They do provide it, and it's very comprehensive of all the different schools in Canada and whether or not your anatomy class counts. Unfortunately, mine doesn't, but there is one nearby that I could take through a college, and I asked, do I have to have that complete by the time of application? And she said no, as long as you have proof of enrollment. So basically, you have to be proving that you will be done that before you would start school. Just like how you'd be proving that you're going to finish your undergrad and receive all your undergraduate credits before you're done school. I hope that makes sense. I asked about the class size. There's 350 students in the first year of medicine, and that's, I think, the biggest of the schools, and about 45 of those are international students. She said campus is really focused on collaboration. There are specific teams dedicated to mentor academically the med students, which is pretty interesting. They really want those students to feel integrated and academically supported, so there's definitely a focus on that academic nature. She said in terms of extracurriculars, there is a really interesting ambassador program that is a person who would be an external representative of the school and that med school to future students, hospitals, parents, all sorts of different engagements. It's a really sought after sort of involvement place, and it looks pretty good. She said there's often international students that participate in that, and that, as someone who had a lot of fun representing her undergraduate university, that's kind of appealing. I asked sort of about unique internships, but she was explaining that more so unique opportunities that are up and coming for Melbourne. There is sort of this street near Melbourne University that has a number of hospitals on it. The city, the government are funneling funds into to make it into sort of a medical corridor, this research, medicine, care corridor, and being right there, the University of Melbourne students would have opportunities to go and interact with those services, potentially do your residencies and internships, but also just to do shadowing opportunities and things like that. So as a university, there are up and coming really interesting opportunities down the pipe. And that was the University of Melbourne. So the final school that I'm going to be talking about, and the school that gave me the best impression, just in terms of how easy it was to talk to this person and how personable it was and the information that was given, was the University of Western Australia. So in terms of the application, she said there is no supplementary application, so no personal statement, things like that. You do have to interview, and that interview is done in Toronto, which I really appreciate because it's an in-person interview. So that is the school really demonstrating that they want to know the students that they're interviewing and they want to meet them, which I think is pretty cool. The other universities that do have interviews, they're through Skype, which is great in terms of accessibility, but I just appreciate that Western wants to see these people face to face. In terms of fee waiver, she said that it is sometimes offered for international applicants, but that I could contact her to make sure that it was, which really felt personable to me. There's about 100 students in their first year medical class, and 20 of those are international. I asked her about campus life. She said it's kind of contained in its own self-bubble. So it's everything and everybody on campus is there to be on campus. It's not integrated into a city like you might expect the University of Toronto is. In terms of support programs, she said that there's an orientation with AusTrek at the university, as well as one for the university. There's airport pickup, there's a mentor program, academic support, there's an international office that has specific medical school-focused international supports. So there's a lot of support there. In terms of student-to-student community, she mentioned the mentorship program and communication with the students. There's only about 2,500 students on campus, so it's a very small campus, and a large portion of that is the medical students. She said there's a number of clubs and sports. She did laugh and say you're probably not going to have time to participate in a lot of them, but they're there. And any sort of unique internships, she said that they do participate in the 6-week or year-long rural internship, so you have to do the 6 weeks in rural medicine, but you could extend that if you wanted to. She said campus, in terms of its relation to the city, it's about 5 minutes from the city and 15 minutes from the ocean. Pretty awesome. Within the city, the transit's pretty great. It's pretty laid back. The city itself is beautiful and is rated the most affordable in Australia. Oh, I should note it's Perth is the city name. She said that something that's really great about their program is that within the first week, you are communicating and connecting with patients. Of course, you're not doing anything medically related with them, but you are there and you're interacting, and that is something, that sort of patient focus and focus on getting the students with patients quickly is really important to me. So yeah, I have even like a note here about how personable she was. It was really great to talk to her. In general, it was really great to talk to all the universities, but the representative for the University of Western Australia really gave me a good impression of the school, and really sort of I left being like, I want to go here. Of course, I'm going to do more research to really detail out internship and match rates, things like that, of where I want to go, but I got a really great impression of the University of Western Australia. So that's my impression of some of the graduate entry medical programs in Australia that I got through this fair. So again, everything I said here was just what was information given to me from a representative of the university. Obviously, there's more information out there. I have tons of view books and things like that I'm going to be flipping through and detailing out. And I can do another review that's more comprehensive, maybe one for each school or one longer one comparing all the schools, which one has higher tuition, which one has more students, that kind of thing. But I hope this kind of helped give some perspective. If you are also applying for the 2019 cohort and didn't get to go to the fair, maybe you've got some information. All in all, I will do another conversation about why I'm interested in going to med school in Australia. But I hope this was a good start and gave you some information, because really I'm finding it hard to find any sort of personal information out there. If you have questions, comments, want to add things that I should research or look into, please leave them down below. Let's start a conversation. I really would like to interact with you guys. And let me know where you are on your pre-med journey. I'll see you next time. Bye.